Thank you for watching DroTV. We're here at the Florida Cannabis Festival in Mount Dora. I'd like to introduce our guest, Dennis Misigoy. How are you?
Very good, very good. Thank you guys so much for inviting me over to chat a little bit. I'm glad to be here and glad to be talking to all the wonderful folks here that are coming by and attending the event.
Tell us why the Libertarian Party is the best party when it comes to marijuana and the legalization of drugs.
So this is, it goes in a lot of ways, but I think, at a base point, the first thing to understand is that we're not just putting our finger up into the wind and saying, well, this is what's popular now. The Libertarian Party has been around since 1971, so a little over 50 years. And from the very beginning, we have always supported decriminalization of marijuana and drugs in general because it's not based on, again, just trying to play the room and what's popular and what do we think, these ideas about whether something is good or bad. One of the things that we need to get away from, and one of the things that I think grounds my view on this particular subject is the idea that it doesn't even matter whether a substance is good or bad. It's a matter of individual rights and what does the government actually have legitimate power to do. If you recognize the government doesn't have legitimate standing to, well, let me take it a step back. If you recognize that government power is a really like American fundamental value, is based on the power that can be vested in it by the people who are governed, well, then you start to think about, well, what are the limits of that? If I only have the power to maybe say defend myself and my property and whatnot, I don't have the right to tell somebody else what they can and can't put in their body, what plants they can grow on their property, or all these other things. And if I don't have the power to do that, how can I vest that power in the government? So it's not just, again, what is convenient or what's popular or what the science of the moment tells us, but it's about, it is about what is our actual individual rights. It's based on principles of individual liberty, and because it's that's why it doesn't waver, and that's why you can have confidence that that is a position we will always hold to. Again, we're not just chasing whatever's popular or whatever is the current moment. This is who we are. We have always been the advocates for individual liberty, and it doesn't matter what the substance is. You don't necessarily have to. We had a question before over here about whether or not I personally am a cannabis user, and I'm not. I abstain from. I don't drink alcohol. I don't do almost anything. I'm pretty boring in that sense personally, but I recognize that the effects of government prohibition on any one of these things has been a complete disaster. They are wholly negative, and so it's for that reason that we desperately need to get away from it. And there's a myriad of downstream effects, and it's all negative. It's all harmful, and the only way things are going to meaningfully change substantively is by getting away and not continuing to give that power to people who will abuse it and will just chase whatever the trend is and will fear-monger and do everything they can to have an excuse to get power. And there's also other motives behind why they try to shut this down. And so for all those kind of reasons and more, because it's at the core of our principles that individuals have the right to decide what they do with themselves as long as you don't violate anyone else's rights, this is why it is why we are the right choice on this issue.
There's no Democratic booth here for Demings. There's no Republican booth here for Rubio. Tell us why the Libertarian Party came here today.
The Libertarian Party came here because, like I said, this is consistent with our values. And I think there's a lot of people here, particularly in this community, in the community that has been involved with cannabis at all these different levels, that who's seen the ugly side of this. You go to a general audience and you won't talk. The guy in the booth across from me, he's not from Florida, but the guy in the booth across from me mentioned the fact that he had spent a significant amount of time in prison related to marijuana. And somebody else I spoke to when I was handing out my cards told me that her son had been locked up and, about the size of the bag that he had that he went to jail for. And I forget in what state that was, but, so we're here talking to people who recognize these issues, who understand the real harm. And that's part of the reason why we're here. I don't know that I definitely don't think the Republicans would really have much of a message. I mentioned a few people this quote. I just took my breath away when I saw it a few months ago from Marco Rubio saying when they did have some marijuana legalization bill floating around at the federal level, he said that we needed to keep marijuana illegal at the federal level because, quote unquote, black market weed is laced with fentanyl. Which just to me was just like, so let's keep it all in the black market. Really, that's brilliant. There's a real lack of understanding, and whether that's willful or whether that's just they really are that dumb, I can't tell you, but what difference does it make, right? I mean, They want to continue a policy that has entirely negative impacts. And, when it comes to Val Demings and the Democrats at the state level in many states have done some good work in respect to trying to get some decriminalization efforts and legalization, even for the recreational in a lot of places. And I can appreciate that, but, that certainly hasn't been their push at the federal level. They're chasing it when they get a chance. But at the end of the day, Val Demings in particular isn't a candidate who has the courage to stand up and say something like, we need to just get out of the way and let people choose what they want to do, decide what they want to do with their own body and what they want to grow. Because even then, even where Democrats are all in on, superficially supporting marijuana decriminalization, you notice still in all those cases you have a lot of regulation and you have the big cannabis industries and everything else versus consideration for the regular people, the people who are walking around over here who have to face restrictions for different things. And I had somebody pass by, hand me a little flyer about a push for home grow. And it's that sort of thing. It's about your basic rights, your basic freedom, and there's nobody who can stand with us on that issue. And they're not going to be able to answer the hard questions on those issues. So I think that's why they're not here. I can't imagine why they would want to be here. This isn't their crowd.
No, absolutely not. And to remind everybody, we are at the largest Florida Cannabis Festival here in Mount Dora. If you were elected to U.S. Senate here in the state of Florida, what would you do for us cannabis users?
I'm going to push legislation as much as I can. Obviously, if you're just one guy in the sea of all these others, in the sea of red and blue, you're only going to have so much influence. So it's going to be a challenge at first. And this is something I mentioned to people, and this kind of segues into kind of a little bit about my experience we were talking about before we got on here. When you're just one guy, sometimes all you're going to be able to do is stand up and make noise and let people see and set an example. But what I want to be able to do is we want to be able to push legislation to, repeal the Controlled Substances Act. We want to end every sort of federal law that has allowed them to overstep the U.S. Constitution and decide that they can criminalize substances, the scheduling of any substances. That power shouldn't exist for the government. In addition to that, and in lieu of that, while you have difficulty doing that, the other thing I would do at a bare minimum would be trying to do everything we can to vote against and stop the funding for all the agencies, all the federal agencies that are being used to enforce these laws, and all the money that is sent down to local police and everything else with strings attached that they need to pursue these programs as well. We need to stop getting federal tax dollars used to basically spent to go after peaceful people who are just, again, want to consume a substance, and we shouldn't be targeting people like that. So I want to get all the federal tax dollars out of doing that. So those are the kind of things. Now, to kind of segue what I was saying, though, relevant to kind of my experience was the fact that when I was elected back in November of 2016 to a special taxing district down in Miami-Dade County, and for the first 2 years I was on that board, I could basically get nothing done. Everybody else on the board was against me. So every contentious vote we had, I lost 4-1 or 3-1 if somebody missed the meeting. And anything I tried to do besides adjourning a meeting, basically any motion I made died for lack of a second. So it was the first 2 years were very difficult, but the people in the community saw what I was doing. It inspired enough people that where I got a couple guys step up. They weren't libertarians per se, but they cared enough about what was going on that they stepped up. They took a couple of seats. And so for the next 2 years, we were able to do some stuff. We brought a little bit of transparency. We cut a bit of spending on projects that nobody wanted, and we were able to do some good things. Now, how does that relate to this? Is that, if I'm elected to the U.S. Senate, and even if every libertarian running for federal office in 2022 gets elected, we're not going to have a lot of power to start. But it's a slow process of bringing change. But it's a process we have to start. We can't wait for it any longer. And so this is part of what is so essential about it. We can't wait any longer. So the first thing is to be there, to set the example. We're going to have to inspire more people to step up. And as they do, and also I think we have the opportunity here in Florida to set the example and show the other states that, we don't have to pick between the two sides who want to run our lives, decide what you can put in your body, decide what you can do on your own property, and are just consistently violating our rights. So this is this is what's key. And so all of this is part and parcel of what we're trying to bring to the table. And so it's a long process, but it has to begin with us getting in there and showing that we belong, setting an example, and then push that needle further and further. And ideally, at the end game, we want to repeal the Controlled Substances Act. We want to repeal all the laws that the federal government has used, certainly at the federal level, to engage in this kind of behavior, get rid of the funding that incentivizes local police departments and state and local governments to go after marijuana users and other drug users as well. Nobody should be having their lives destroyed for selling something to somebody who wants it, or for putting something in their body voluntarily. It makes absolutely no sense. Or just holding something. It makes absolutely no sense, and it's totally goes against the principles of individual liberty and I think the values that are represented in the U.S. Constitution as well.
Awesome. Well, Dennis, excellent points. I couldn't have said it better myself, and that's why I didn't. That's why you're here, Dennis. So thank you very much. The election is this week. It's Tuesday. You can get out there and vote early if you'd like. And his name is Dennis Misigoy, and he is running for U.S. Senate here in Florida.
Yeah. The website is just my last name. It's misigoy.com. So if you guys want to find out more and there's other issues you want to learn about where we stand on, go check it out. It's misigoy.com. Come out, check it out, find out whatever you want, and I hope I can get you guys' support. And let's change history. This is every one of these is an opportunity, and again, how much longer can we wait? So thank you guys, and thank you again for having me on here, guys.
Dennis, thank you very much.